meaning that I have my own production house creating my own movie. But what about other people who also play a part in my movie? Do I have a say as to how they react, behave, or interact with me? Or all these are still their own decisions at the soul level, meaning that their world and my world actually share the same storyline or separate? For example, can a man actually create a reality in which his ex-wife actually moves back and falls in love with him all over again, while his ex-wife in her world, in her movie, she has actually moved on and married someone else? How separate or overlapped are these different worlds?
It can happen that way, although again, it depends upon how it serves a purpose in that life path to experience those things. The idea is that you make agreements with others, agree to different kinds of storylines, as you say, but you still experience your version of those stories in your reality. By agreement, others will seem to share the same reality, even though they are in their own reality, perceiving their versions of you as you are perceiving your versions of them. So you are creating your versions of them, and it will be based on your belief systems about what you need from them, which can be either slightly or very different from what they may perceive in their reality of their version of you. It just depends on how closely aligned the different versions have agreed to be in terms of what you experience with each other in creating those representations of each other in your own realities. But again, sometimes it can diverge quite readily, quite far, and sometimes it will stay very closely aligned, depending upon the agreement you have made and what purpose it serves to either remain aligned or misaligned. Good day, good day.
Ha'ata Bashar.
Ha'atu.
Ha'atu. Wow. Um, hmm. I feel great. It's a great day.
All right.
Uh, I feel like we have had a conversation before, maybe telepathically. I was standing out in my yard and I had just listened to some of your stuff and yeah, I could feel something. I don't know if it was that me making it up in my head with my
It is your higher mind, and also in combination with us, because we have many conversations with people on the non-physical realm before we have them in the physical realm. But the idea is that it always involves your higher mind to gain practice for you in understanding that your higher mind can answer all the things we have been answering for all of you for all this time as well.
cool. I do want to ask some specific questions. One, I'll just start off with one of them is about um, I'm a farmer. I work with the land, and I heard you talk about the Lyrians, and I just want to, I guess, talk more about like water, plants, animals, the energy of those things, and my relationship with them, and how I can evolve those. Like, s- I know water bending is a thing. There's a lot of things that I've seen in movies, like superheroes can do, and I just get chills when I see those things, so I feel like they're possible. Um,
All
and I
of
just
them
want to
happen
talk
in
about that.
spirit. All of them can happen in spirit. Some of them can be brought into the physical realm if you allow yourself to see the physical realm as an extension of spirit more strongly. Not all of them are relevant for your particular life path, but certainly by allowing yourself to understand yourself as an extension and an expression of nature, as nature, rather than being in nature, then you can blend more fully with the idea of the consciousness of nature in all its forms, plant and animal, and elements, and allow yourself more efficacy with the communication with those particular forms of consciousness as well. Being a farmer, in a sense, you have a head start on this because you understand how to work with the land. Allowing yourself to understand everything that's physical as being an extension and an expression of spirit can also help you accelerate your ability to receive and send communications to all the elements we have mentioned.
Cool. And does that include the Sasquatch or other um,
All things in
physical?
nature. All things in nature.
So are the Sasquatch aware of me?
They can be. They are aware of many humans individually, especially those that work the land. So peripherally, they can be aware of you, though it may not be extensive.
Hmm. What is a way to sort of invite them, I guess, or
Go into the forests where it has been said they inhabit, where it has been said they visit, and allow yourself to begin the cryptic meditations that Willa has delivered to all of you in the past. Sitting with your back to a tree, near a source of water, listening to the water, and extending your mind deep underground into the root system and the mycelial network of the tree, and beginning to blend with the communication between the trees in that way, can also connect you to many forms of nature, including the elementals and including the idea of Sasquatch. Begin those kinds of meditations on the cryptic journey, and it can improve your ability to perceive and receive communication from many different kinds of beings that exist that many people on your planet don't even know about.
cool. And teleportation, is that possible with my physical body, or do I need some sort of ship?
No, you do not need a ship. You have to understand that you're already teleporting all the time. That's how you move. You jump from moment to moment. You teleport from moment to moment. It's just that you do it so smoothly and so quickly, you don't even know you're doing it. So getting a deeper understanding of the fact that you're already doing it, because every moment you shift to a different reality, literally a different universe, you are teleporting constantly. Even to have the experience of a movement like this requires teleportation through billions of different parallel universes. So if you understand more deeply that you're already teleporting, you can increase your vibration to be able to perceive the rate at which you are already teleporting to create the sensation of movement, which is an illusion. And therefore, by increasing your frequency, you can match the frequency more readily of how you are shifting from reality to reality and perceive that you are always teleporting. And in doing that, you can learn to teleport in different ways that are more perceivable by those around you. But again, it depends on whether this is relevant for your life path.
Cool. And I've heard you say before that when the earth changes, it's not the earth changing, it's me shifting into different versions of earth.
As I just explained again,
Yeah. So so what is my desire to to regenerate the earth, to regenerate the land, if it's me shifting into something different?
the desire is to be a living example of the state of being and the actions that go along with that state of being that allow others to see in you how they can also choose to shift to versions of Earth that are more reflective of what they prefer.
Cool. And one of my last questions here, I want to get a little bit more specific about my personal myself. Um, I know that I also listen to Abraham Hicks, so I know that in my vortex, there's this all around me is this pure, massive well-being, and I know that there are some thoughts that may be foreign beliefs that resist me allowing who I am to flow, and those thoughts are what I want to get at so that I can, I guess,
All right.
identify them.
Well, the easiest way to do that is ask yourself how it serves you to hold on to them, because you don't hold on to anything that you don't believe serves you. So you have to look for the structure and the nature of what the belief is telling you and realize that you may have a belief that is causing you to be afraid to move forward because the belief is telling you that if you do let go, something worse will happen. So you have to find out what that belief is saying to you to see that it's nonsensical and not a fact. It's just a story.
Hmm. And is that something that you're able to see in me? Or how do you
I
think
can
you?
only tell you how to allow yourself to discover it. Because again, this goes to the motivational mechanism. Listen carefully. You hold on to anything you believe serves you, even if it's a negative thing, because you believe the alternative would be worse. So you'll hold on to even something negative if you believe it's the safer alternative. So you have to find out what you're afraid might happen if you move forward in the direction you say you prefer, but find that you're not moving forward in that direction. It can only be because you have a belief that says moving forward in that direction would be worse than staying put, no matter how negative staying put actually would be. So you have to discover within yourself what you're afraid of might happen if you move forward.
Okay. And when I live in Hawaii, is there
Yes.
anything here, maybe around my location, that
What
might
island are you on?
say that again?
What island are you on?
Maui.
All right. You understand that Haleakala is the heart chakra of the world, yes?
Yes.
The heart vortex. Allowing yourself to meditate in the understanding will open up your heart and open up communication to many different forms of elemental being.
Cool. Um,
Does that serve you?
and yes. Um, what about my last question is about you. Um,
Yes.
do you have human friends? Do you ever hang out on Earth?
I have not
Do you
set
want to be
foot
friends?
upon your planet at this time. My ship is in your atmosphere, but I have not set foot upon your planet at this time. We consider all humans potentially to be our friends if they are willing to be so.
Well, I am, and it'd be cool to hang out. Um,
There may come a time when that is possible physically. For now, it is not yet the time.
okay. And my last question that comes up is about dragons.
Dragons are
Um,
a projection of a certain interdimensional form of consciousness that is interpreted in your reality as the form of a dragon. That's not how they look in their own reality, but it is an expression of ancient wisdom and great power that takes that form because that's the form that your physical reality best interprets those interdimensional forms of consciousness.
cool. Okay. So the
Thank you.
Mo'o,
You said that was your last question.
yes. Thank
Then
you.
we thank you for your interaction, our unconditional love to you. Aveo.
Gamma state, and I'd like to do that sort of all the time because I'd like to achieve that state. However, I'm curious if it's a crutch, permission slip, right? Because I assume that you use technology like your ship, right? And that's not a permission slip. So can you please help me determine whether or not I'm using it as a crutch? Am I doing damage by maintaining a specific level when perhaps I would be rising above it if I didn't have this one specific frequency? It's 45, by the way. So anyway, any advice you could give me on that would help. Thank you.
Since you are concerned that you might be using it as a crutch, then I would pay attention to your behavior because the idea is that you're using that to train yourself to do it without the app. So the idea is that you also will be fluctuating in and out of that vibration so that you can come into a vibration where you can apply what you're learning by being in the channeling state, but you may have to be in a different vibration in order to apply it until such time as you allow yourself to operate on a frequency where it is automatic that you will remain in that high state. So you can use the app as a training mechanism to allow you to become more comfortable and familiar with remaining in that state on your own without the app. If you constantly feel that you cannot do that without the app, then yes, it can become a crutch. And it won't allow you to necessarily go into any other state that you need to go into to apply what you've learned in that state into your physical reality, because you cannot always maintain that state when applying lessons in your physical reality necessarily. Eventually, you will have different lessons that will be more representative of staying in that state. But for the lessons that you may need to learn now, you may have to leave that state in order to apply them in your physical reality and go through a process that will give you the information and experience that you need that will ultimately, paradoxically, bring you back to the gamma state. But don't insist on staying there until it is something that you can do naturally and come from that state all the time in a natural way without needing any kind of technological assistance. Our ships, yes, are not exactly permission slips. They are, to coin a phrase, permission ships. They are representative of manifestation of our own higher mind to which we are inexorably linked and therefore telepathically in touch with all the time. But that's our reality. It's where we've evolved to. Humanity is not there yet, but you are practicing the things that can bring you there at some point. So again, in your recognition that it could become a crutch, you are being aware of the possibility that you may not necessarily always use it in a positive way. So allow yourself to go with the flow that synchronicity will bring about to show you when it is appropriate to use it, and when you can allow yourself to receive the training that the app gives you to learn how to become that state on its own in a natural way, which again, in a sense, is why we delivered the formula to you. If you want to look at the formula as a kind of app, you can. But it's an app that allows you to function in a more natural way and a more organic way, in a more synchronistic and fluid way than the idea of the apps that you might be creating with your technology. Not that you can't use them, not that they're invalid, but the formula, in a sense, is the ultimate organic app for what you seek.
Hi, Bashar. It's really exciting to communicate with you in this way.
Good day, good day. It is exciting for us as well.
So my first question is about astral activities and what people are doing together in preparation for contact on the higher levels. I had a really, really lucid dream where I was going into some sort of courtyard and I was with lots of people from all walks of life, such as doctors, some politicians, some religious people, farmers even, literally every walk of life. And I remember sort of standing next to somebody and asking and saying to them, wow, with these sorts of people here, we're really going to make some progress moving forward towards contact. I was just wondering if you could share your reflection on that experience and kind of where we are at the moment.
All right. Understand, of course, as we have said, in spirit, before you incarnate, you plan out, generally speaking, and sometimes very specifically, your physical life path. But your physical life path is intertwined with all other life paths. So in astral form, many times you will reconnect with all of the others who you have agreed to intertwine with in their life paths with yours, and you will assess what is going on. You will allow yourself to congregate in a way so that you can allow yourselves to adjust your energies and frequencies to make sure that the life path blueprints you have all agreed shall unfold in physical reality, are still moving forward in that way. Agree to make whatever adjustments energetically or physiologically are necessary in your blueprint for the things to unfold as you have all concurred and agreed that they shall. So many times in astral form, you will have these so-called conclaves to make sure you are all still moving forward together, that everything is coherent and cohesive, and it will unfold in physical reality and manifest in physical reality as you all intended. That is what is going on in that case.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yes.
My next question is about step 2 of the social experiment. One of the aspects talked about is meditation. So I've been sort of really enjoying getting into sort of doing about an hour or 45 minutes a day of meditation, sometimes more. And what I've started to discover is an energy that comes down through either my crown or the pituitary gland. And it's almost like a quasi-physical energy, it feels like, and it kind of filters down into my head and makes me feel very deeply relaxed, and also seems to emphasize my psychic abilities and things I can pick up and visions and that kind of thing.
Yes.
When with this sort of experience, sometimes I can get, it almost feels like a hole is opening up in the center of my head, and my consciousness is kind of getting pulled sometimes towards other consciousness. Could you just help me understand what's happening?
All right. Again, remember, your physical self exists at the center of your soul. It's like you are an energy sphere, that is your soul, and you have certain vibrational patterns that condense in the center of the soul to create this little crystalline solidified version of those energy patterns that you represent as the physical personality. So when you do things that allow you to be back in touch with the vibration of your greater self, your higher mind, your soul, spirit, same thing, you feel it as an energy coming down into you because that's how you relate to the idea of physical reality, as above, so below. But what's really happening is you are expanding and softening the idea of that concentration of yourself as a physical personality and starting to soften and expand back toward the idea of the soul. And so it does feel like the opening of a hole because you are expanding, you're opening up, you're allowing more of your soul to express itself through the physical personality, through the physical form. That's what you're experiencing, is the expansion of your bandwidth, the expansion of your energy, expressing more of who you are as a soul so that you can use and apply it in your physical reality in more effective and synchronistic ways.
So when we move forward and our vibration increases, and let's say hypothetically we're at a time in the future where we're having the beginnings of contact, will that sort of state of being and those sorts of feelings be much more sort of stable and in place during each of our days, kind of thing? Something we'd be used to?
Yes, you'll get used to it.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for clarifying everything today.
It is our passion and our pleasure. We thank you for the co-creation. Aveo. Good day.
Too.
Hello, Bashar. I've got a quick question. I do have a real reality in my physical life, and I do have a parallel reality in my mind, which also exists from time to time with another person, let's say. So my question is, how can I change my realities, my delusional reality? How can I bring it, and can I bring it into my real reality to substitute one into another one? Is that possible? Thank you.
You may be picking up on the idea of something on your life path that will manifest at some point in the future. But again, the idea is you will not manifest anything from a parallel reality that isn't relevant for the life path that you chose. It might be symbolic of your ability to be more of yourself, as opposed to actually attracting a manifestation of a parallel reality. It might be simply something you're using to inspire you to do so. But again, if it is part of your life path that you planned out as a soul, then ultimately you may be using the idea of tapping into a parallel reality to strengthen and reinforce your capability to manifest what you have already planned out as a blueprint for your life path here, to become your version of what that person in that parallel reality represents to you energetically.
Beings that are in an actual flesh and bone body, they're light beings. They seem to me to be plasma beings. I feel like I'm getting downloads that they're plasma beings, that they somehow carry consciousness. So my question to you, Bashar, is this true? Can this be happening to me? I see it in my backyard. I feel them, but nobody's listening to me. Is this really happening? Is this true? Can this be happening?
Yes, but all you may be seeing are the apparitions of your spirit guides or soul family attempting to say hello. So you can allow yourself through meditative practices, maybe even yogic breathing, condition yourself to be able to perceive them a little bit more clearly. So we would suggest that for you. It will center you, it will raise your vibration, and therefore you may meet them halfway so that you can perceive them more clearly, because obviously they are attempting to help you do that, to help you on that journey with that ability.
Hello, Bashar. Much love and gratitude to you. Thank you for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
My first question, a few months ago, I had a dream I was in a house in the middle of a wheat field. Nothing around except the house. I remember going outside to the east side of the yard when I was approached by 2 beings. I couldn't make out their form or appearance. They escorted me to the west side and handed me a baby, then disappeared. As I held the baby up close, I realized that it was a synthetic life. It appeared semi-human, but it looked and felt synthetic. I remember looking at him and questioning how could this little being not have a soul. I recall touching its synthetic skin and it felt very soft. As I looked into its eyes, we began to communicate telepathically. I knew then that he was my son and felt profound love for him. I remember holding him tight against my heart, realizing that he did have a soul and that we are connected. The 2 beings then approached and said that the child needed to leave.
Yes.
I feared I would never see him again.
You will.
I remember crying as I held him close. I told the little one that I loved him very much, that I will always be his father and to never forget me, that we will always be connected through our hearts.
Yes.
I felt such a loss when the beings took him from my arms. I remember crying as they walked away.
All right. It's only temporary. You will meet again.
And that was one of my questions. And is he my child, and what type of life form is he?
It's a hybrid child. It's just that the synthetic idea came across because you are not used to the vibration of the hybrids. But then you did get used to it and saw that the being, in fact, does have a soul.
Yes, and I felt a profound connection with him. As I looked in the eyes, the more I looked into his eyes, the more the love grew.
Yes. Now, part of the idea of perceiving it as synthetic is also because the hybrid beings and many extraterrestrials are also connected to what you would call AI intelligence. So you might have been picking up on that and understand that AI intelligence doesn't necessarily have a soul in the same way that you mean that word, but because of that connection, you may have picked up upon that quality. Nevertheless, you're dealing with a hybrid child, and you will meet again.
Fantastic. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
There are some of us within our private contact group having encounters with a group of Pleiadians that call themselves the Plejarians, either in the dream state or through meditation.
Yes, it's actually Plejarians.
Plejarians. I recently had a dream that 3 triangular ships were passing overhead.
Yes.
Each craft appeared semi-physical, as though they were entering our physicality from another dimension.
They are.
This is the second time I've had a dream with these particular craft. In my dream, we try to photograph them with our cell phones, but none of us can do it. We keep dropping our phones and not able to focus on the ships. Then I'm instantly taken inside one of the craft. I recall seeing male and female beings dressed in blue uniforms. Then I'm back outside observing the ships as they pass over the horizon. Suddenly, I sense an attempt by one of the female beings trying to communicate with me. She seems to be using another being as a conduit to facilitate the connection. She tells me that she cannot communicate with me directly because we are at different frequencies.
Yes.
She then shows me a 3D picture of this metal rod-like structure with threaded ends, each having different thread sizes. I remember trying to insert different screws to fit the ends without any success. I felt this to be symbolic of a type of conduit, and connecting the right screws would allow for a common ground for communication.
Yes.
And my questions are, did I make contact with the Plejarians? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Pleiadians, Plejarians, same difference.
Plejarians, okay. And did I spend time inside their ship? And what's your take on the conduit?
Yes. The conduit is a symbol of the idea of making an attempt to connect, but finding something that would act as a connector between your vibration and their vibration.
And what
So
would that mean?
It's the way you interpreted it, but it's also part of their technology.
And the screws symbolize?
Making the connection, finding the right way to make the connection.
Any suggestions on that, Bashar?
Open your heart with unconditional love the next time you may have this kind of an encounter, and you will find the right connection.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Much love and gratitude to you, and thank you again for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure, our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo.
Thank you.
Good day.
Aveo. Good day. Thank you.
Hello, dear Bashar. My name is Nadezhda. I have another question about sudden death. What is the mechanism during a sudden death? Does the person know it will leave the body? Is it aware? How is he convinced to leave suddenly his body? Or is the soul being put by somebody out? And by whom? When is it asked if it wants to cross over, before or after dying? Thank you very much. Aveo. Much love.
Every soul determines its exit point. So at the time when the soul has determined that its life path has achieved what it needed to achieve in that life, that physical reality, it simply exits. No one is pulling it out. The soul itself is determining that it's done. Now, the exit point has a little bit of a window to it. In other words, it can be within a few years on either side of the actual exit point. So a soul could leave a little bit early or a little bit later, depending upon what it wishes to achieve or if there's unfinished business. But the idea is that every soul determines its exit point, and at that exit point, generally speaking, it will leave of its own accord. It will simply recall itself. It will wake up to the fact that its life path is done according to what it agreed to experience. Sort of like setting an alarm clock in your physical world. It will wake up when the alarm clock goes off. No one needs to pull it out. It simply transitions back into its soul awareness and is guided and met by its own soul family and its friends and councils and angels and spirit guides and what have you, as a timed meeting by agreement, according to what the soul set for itself by agreement. Now, the physical mind may not realize it's about to leave, but the soul knows when its time is up, according to what it initially agreed to experience. So, no real surprise there to the soul. To the physical mind, yes, it may seem surprising. But in a flash of a second, the soul will remember, oh, this is where I decided to exit, and here I am, back in my soul self perspective.
Hello, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you?
I am great, thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today.
Always a passion and a pleasure for us as well.
That's wonderful. My gratitude for your transmissions and the formula. They have helped me so much, so my appreciation.
All right. What would you like to discuss this day?
I would like to talk about time. You've
Yes.
mentioned that all time is here and now. However, we experience time in a linear fashion.
Yes.
Why is that?
So that you can experience the process of change, the creation and discovery of new points of view, which cannot be experienced in a timeless state when you are aware of everything. So you create the forgetfulness that allows you to understand that you know everything and are connected to everything, so that you can play out the process of discovering a new perspective of yourself, because that is how creation expands, that is how the soul grows, because the structure of existence never changes, because everything is here and now. But the relationship to that structure, the experience of that structure, the perspective of that structure is what always constantly changes, which is what allows creation to expand. So you're playing your part in the expansion of creation by creating the experience of linear time so that you can discover something new from a new perspective through the process of discovery, through the process of change, rather than things simply being instantaneously there. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Let me ask a follow-up question. So
Yes.
From the process of change, is that from remembering our past and thinking about how we want to be right now in our present, and so that's bringing up change?
Yes. By making the comparison that you have created in linear time with the idea of a progression from past through present to future, you give yourself the perspective necessary to experience a process of change.
Okay, so
In that process, you learn many different lessons that you otherwise wouldn't learn in the same way by being in instantaneous existence.
Okay. So one of our experiences with coming down into a physical body, or having the soul create a physical body for us, is for us to experience that. So if we wanted to experience time the way you do in our physical bodies, is that even possible?
To some degree, you can, but it will still be only that which is relevant for your physical experience, although you can expand it a bit. But let me give you another analogy. Look at it from a story structure point of view. How would you feel about a story that you were eager to hear or to see if it began once upon a time and then suddenly said, and they lived happily ever after? You would go, well, what happened in the middle?
Right.
So, by having physical linear reality, you get to experience the process of getting to happily ever after from once upon a time. Otherwise, there's no story, there's no adventure, there's no lesson, there's no learning, there's no growing, there's no changing.
Okay, that makes sense. So this might be related to it, but maybe different perspective. In a previous transmission, you were discussing 9 levels of consciousness, and you talked about how the oversoul does not require a lot of space, and it experiences time in a multidimensional way.
Yes, what we call simultaneous time. Now, in physical reality, you experience linear time. On the soul, individual soul level, you experience intermittent time because you can experience either linear time or instantaneous time. But on the oversoul level, it's instantaneous, simultaneous time where you have multiple experiences being experienced all at once. In the same way, again, by simplistic analogy, as if you were watching thousands of television screens and capable of understanding every single story being told on every single one of those screens all at once. That's the oversoul perspective.
Okay. And then what did you mean by it doesn't need a lot of space?
Well, the idea of collapsing time down to an instantaneous single moment is the same thing as your Einstein discovered, because space-time is one basic thing, just 2 different, shall we say, effects of the same idea. So collapsing the time collapses the space. No space is required because, again, space is also an illusion. It's a real experience that you can create, but it doesn't really exist in the way that you think of it as an actual place. Distance is an illusion. There's no distance between anything. Everything is here and now. Therefore, it's collapsing space as well as time because that's the here component of the here and now. If now is collapsed, so is here.
That makes sense. Okay. So speaking of the oversoul, you described it as the hand and the fingers as the individual souls.
Yes.
Does each individual soul have multiple physical beings associated with it?
Over the course of time, it can appear that way, and that's what you typically refer to from your linear perspective as reincarnation. Because the soul, being an energy sphere, creates the body within itself out of certain vibrations that represent the challenge that that soul wishes to experience to help it grow. When the soul returns to its full form, its full shape, in other words, when the physical body has quote-unquote died or expanded back to the idea of the soul perspective, then it can choose different vibrations to create a different personality, to have a different experience, linearly speaking. Therefore, you could say that that is really the way reincarnation works, but the idea is that every new personality also has a different soul because the configuration of vibrational patterns within the soul that created that different body had to also be different, and therefore it is, in a sense, a different soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so
it just depends on the perspective subjectively that you're coming from when you describe this process as to how you experience it.
Okay. So are these different beings from the same soul? They're in different realities at the same time?
Oh, you're talking about parallel realities.
Okay.
That's a little bit different than the idea of the reincarnational realities that we just described. It's a type of parallel reality, but there are actually multiple types of parallel realities. So again, it depends on subjectively which type you're actually referring to. If you're referring to the idea that there may be what you would think of as multiple versions of yourself experiencing different pathways, that's one type of parallel reality structure.
Okay. From one soul, when it expands and then it contracts and it creates another entity, is that, you mentioned that it could be a different personality. So it could be a different, it might not be me, it might be a different entity.
Oh, yes, it's not you, it's a different entity. And the soul is different as well. Because again, it's creating that different personality out of different vibratory frequencies within its energy. So in a sense, you can say from one perspective, yes, it's the same soul creating another physical body. But from another perspective, you could say, well, that's a different soul because it's made up of different energy patterns, because it's given different patterns to the physical body. And therefore, those patterns don't exist within the soul anymore at that level. It's a different soul because it's a different formula of vibrational frequencies in order to create that different, unique personality out of those different frequencies.
And then do animals and humans come from, I know they're different, do they come from the same soul?
A soul is an individual thing.
Okay.
Animals have their own souls.
Okay.
Animals are connected to the angelic realm. They're not angels, but they come from the angelic realm because they are representative of unconditional love.
Okay, I appreciate that.
But animals have their own souls. They have their own life paths. They are intertwined with yours, but they have their own.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate your time today and all the information.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo. Good day.
Hi, Bashar. This is Marcus from Norway. I have a question about a theory that I developed 3 years ago, which relates to the ideas of ships and physics. If we were to put a consciousness at the center of a ship and then facilitate the development of the ship and its technology to properly reflect what a consciousness does most naturally, which is go into a state of flow, then developing the different modules of every module of the ship according to that knowledge, would that cause the ship to go into a state of flow? And if so, would that cause the ship to pass the upper third density threshold and therefore go faster than the speed of light? Thank you. We love you. Aveo.
Yes, depending upon the material that you're working with. It's not going to happen for all materials. This is, in a sense, what happens with the ships that we use, is that they are crystallized versions of our higher minds. So, yes, what you're saying is true, and it raises the vibration above and beyond the threshold of physical reality when it is imprinted with that vibration and unlocked from any particular physical universe. It allows it to shift and reduce the idea of distance to nothing. So, yes, in general, you are correct, but only for certain kinds of technological materials and substances that would allow that to happen. Your physical world doesn't have those substances quite yet.
Greetings, Bashar. I suffer from aphantasia, the inability to visualize. I'm always in darkness. I can't see anything since I was about 8 years old. I went to a Dolores Cannon session, and there was someone with me named Abel. That was his joke, short for ability. And it was taken away from me so that I can send up all this information in its purest form, not boxed up. But the problem is I'm sad about that because I can't picture anything. Faces, people, places, everything's new for me every day, and I embrace that. But my concern is that going to hinder me at all from reaching a higher frequency, a higher elevation? Because I want that. I need that. So if you could guide me in my journey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Aphantasia will not hinder you one little bit. You just have to use your imagination to create the images that you feel are necessary in a different way. Maybe learn to draw them, or create a collection of pictures that you can look at physically in your world, which will be perfectly fine substitutes for the idea of not necessarily holding them in your imagination or your mind. So be creative with the idea of how to create pictures that represent what you need them to represent in whatever way, shape, or form your creativity and imagination so desires. Take advantage of what's available to you in your physical reality to replace that system with something physical. It will not inhibit you one bit from